Let's dive right into this explainer. Today, we're unpacking a technology that's literally rewriting the rules of global finance. Our goal? To capture the absolute essentials of Adam Rothstein's fascinating book, The End of Money, in 8 minutes or less. We're going to explore how something born in the darkest, most obscure corners of the internet has exploded into a massive financial phenomenon that's challenging the very concept of a traditional bank.
And honestly, we have to start with the ultimate hook, the ghost story of Satoshi Nakamoto. Back in August 2008, this incredibly mysterious inventor, or maybe a group of inventors, emailed this world-changing idea for a virtual currency to a cryptography mailing list. Then, after releasing the software and kind of shepherding it for just a couple of years, Nakamoto completely vanished. Gone. Poof. To this day, despite endless journalistic investigations and crazy false alarms, their true identity remains one of the internet's absolute greatest mysteries.
To really put the stakes of this mystery into perspective, you gotta realize Nakamoto didn't just leave behind a clever white paper. Because their computer was the only one running on the network for most of the currency's first year, Nakamoto mined an estimated 1 million bitcoins. Experts estimate that this abandoned, untouched stash is worth well over $600 million. I mean, whoever actually controls those digital keys wields just an unbelievable amount of power over this whole new digital economy.
What started as this totally obscure idea among a tiny fringe community of cypherpunks and hackers quickly blossomed into an entirely new financial ecosystem. By August 2016, the total value of all Bitcoin in existence had already skyrocketed to a staggering $9.29 billion. Part 1. How Bitcoin actually works. Decoding the digital ledger.
So here's the big question, right? How do you have money without a bank to hold it or a government to back it? The crucial thing to grasp here is that Bitcoins don't physically exist anywhere. You're not actually sending coins to anyone. Instead, the entire system relies on this ingeniously elegant concept called the blockchain. Basically, every single time a fraction of a Bitcoin changes hands, this massive public ledger gets updated. It's essentially a giant, incorruptible list of IOUs that every single participating computer on the network agrees on.
The way this works is actually brilliant. Think of it as a literal chain of data blocks. Every new transaction block has to reference the cryptographic signature, or the hash, of the block that came right before it. If some hacker wanted to secretly alter a past transaction, they wouldn't just have to rewrite that one block. They'd have to rewrite that block and every single block that came after it, and they'd have to do it faster than the rest of the network combined. It makes the transaction history mathematically impossible to tamper with.
This really strict, four-step consensus process actually solves the biggest hurdle in digital money, which is the double spending problem. Think about it. If I have a digital file, an MP3 or whatever, I can copy it 1,000,000 times. But with money, if I can just copy a digital coin, the currency is instantly worthless. But because the network is constantly verifying every single move and grouping them sequentially into these validated blocks, a Bitcoin can only ever be spent once.
Part 2. Mining the digital gold. Bankers, not pickaxes.
So without a central bank printing paper money, where do new Bitcoins actually come from? And what on earth does mining mean in a purely digital world? Well, you can forget the pickaxes and the underground tunnels. Mining is basically acting as a decentralized banker. Thousands of computers on the network are using brute force proof-of-work math to guess these incredibly complex cryptographic signatures. The machines doing all this heavy lifting secure the network and settle the accounts. And when a computer finally guesses the right hash, it wins a programmed reward of newly minted coins.
It is so wild to think about how this is scaled up. Back in 2010, the network was tiny, and the mining reward was so incredibly easy to get that one early enthusiast famously traded 10,000 bitcoins just to have a couple of pizzas delivered to his house. I mean, at the time, they were worth mere fractions of a cent.
Of course, those chill early days very quickly gave way to an intense digital arms race. As more people wanted a piece of the action, the math got harder, requiring these massive specialized factories of computers. And this brought in some extreme price volatility. We're talking massive, whiplash-inducing peaks and crashes. The value of a single Bitcoin has soared into the thousands, totally plummeted following the collapse of major exchanges like Mt. Gox, and then rebounded instantly on rumors of new regulations.
Part 3. Is it really money? The evolution of currency.
With all this incredible, unpredictable volatility, we really have to step back and ask a fundamental economic question. Is Bitcoin actually money? To figure that out, let's take a quick look at the timeline.
We started way back in 4000 BCE using physical correspondence counters in Mesopotamia just to tally commodities. By the 6th century BCE, we had minted coins. Fast forward to 1971, the world completely drops the gold standard and enters an era of purely fiat currency, entirely managed by governments. And then, boom, in 2008, Bitcoin arrives as the very first decentralized post-fiat digital currency.
But here's the catch. Despite the name cryptocurrency, a lot of economists argue it actually totally fails the traditional money test. First off, it has no sovereign government backing it. It's also deflationary by design because there's a hard mathematical limit on how many bitcoins can ever exist, which honestly discourages people from spending it. Central banks can't step in and use monetary policy to manage it during a crisis, and you certainly can't issue credit or loans on bank books like a traditional fractional reserve bank. So it acts much more like an exacting digital store of value. It's a brand new kind of financial instrument rather than a flexible currency that can actually support a global economy.
Part 4. Beyond just digital coins, the true blockchain revolution. Now, here is where the story takes a massive pivot. What if the true value of Satoshi Nakamoto's invention isn't the digital coin itself, but the underlying blockchain technology? Let's compare Bitcoin with newer platforms, like Ethereum. Bitcoin is a first-generation technology. It uses heavy computational proof of work strictly to maintain a ledger of currency. But Ethereum proves that a decentralized ledger can hold way more than just financial transactions. It can actually hold and run software code.
This brings us to the really game-changing concept of smart contracts. Imagine a standard legal agreement, but instead of being written on paper and enforced by a judge, it's written in programming code right on the blockchain. Once the specific conditions of that contract are met, the code acts as this autonomous middleman. It executes the agreement instantly and flawlessly, completely cutting out lawyers, courts, or banks from getting in the way or taking a cut.
The real-world applications of this are absolutely mind-bending. Take Ripple, for example. They're using consensus ledgers to allow global banks to seamlessly settle international transfers without those massive, hefty fees. Then you have projects like ZeroNet attempting to build a fully decentralized internet where websites are hosted across the network, completely wiping out web hosting costs. On a super local level, neighbors in Brooklyn are actually using blockchains to automatically measure and trade the excess solar power generated on their roofs with each other. We are even seeing the rise of DAOs, decentralized autonomous organizations. These are literally entire corporations running completely autonomously on the blockchain, governed entirely by code instead of a CEO or human management. It's wild. Ultimately, by releasing this open source code into the wild, Satoshi Nakamoto might not have perfectly democratized everyday money, but they absolutely handed us a revolutionary tool that's going to fundamentally rewrite the nature of trust, contracts, and power itself. The blockchain is here to stay, for sure. The only question left is, will it liberate our financial systems, or is it just going to create a new set of digital overlords? If you enjoyed this, subscribe to In 8 Minutes and never miss what matters.